Hello, my name is Johnny and welcome to Advanced Fireballs. So, I play against a strong Balrog player, Kaminsky. He's got the best reactions in the biz. You cannot throw one fireball at this man without losing half of your health.
That is so much damage. Oh my god. Gross.
He's forced me to explore the fireball more deeply. He's forced me to grow as a player. I want to compile the techniques I've come across in this little video. Some techniques discussed in this video were shared with me by other players. Some I've collected from the homies in the Guile Discord, and some I've cooked up myself, only to find that these concepts have existed in fighting games for decades. So let's talk about our techniques and share them, so we can all be on the same page and all grow from there. Faster alone, but further together. We'll touch on a few different fireball techniques, then finish off with a tip of when to look for a jump. The negative edge fireball. Most opponents can hear your inputs when you're playing offline. They are most likely subconsciously, or even consciously, hearing you press buttons. This seems to be more of an arcade tactic, but some players are aware of this and use it against their opponent. They'll tap extra buttons, extra loud, or jerk an elbow. They'll do something to feint an input, attempting to bait out your reactions and mess with your hearing. An excellent little technique if you're playing within earshot. What if you could throw a fireball without pressing a button? In Street Fighter V, there's something called negative edge. Some players in some other games may refer to this as release check. You can hold a pressed button. Then, when inputting a special, you can simply release the button, and the game will count this as a pressed button. This is very quiet. If you're playing offline and the opponent can hear your inputs, mixing this technique into your game could give you that edge. I'll explain this, but I'll also link Zaffarino's video where he goes in depth on this technique. In The Way of the Fireball, we talked about that magic fireball distance, where you can throw one fireball, then throw a second fireball very safely because you have enough advantage to recover and anti-air. A deceptive fireball trap. Most fireballs have the last directional input as forward or backward. This means when you're inputting a fireball, you'll move a very tiny distance, which could be enough to throw off your perfect spacing and block advantage. This unmoving fireball technique allows you to keep that exact distance. The basic idea is this: you input the second fireball during the animation of the first fireball. The game will accept inputs if it's right at the end of an animation. What this does is it allows us to fireball without moving forward, without losing our perfect position. The way I've practiced this with Ryu is I stand on this grid line, then I neutral jump to avoid any forward movement, and input a light fireball as I'm landing. Then I input the next fireball during the last frames of my current fireball. I focus on the frame advantage here. If you do this correctly, you can get the exact same frame advantage for each of your fireballs because you are unmoving. If you're inputting the fireball even slightly late, you'll notice that the fireball advantage goes down. Because you're late, you're getting some forward movement frames. This technique takes some practice, and different fireballs are going to have different spaces that you're going to want to be at. So experiment with your fireball and your character. The Partitioned Fireball. So now we know how to avoid forward movement when throwing fireballs. What if we want to move forward while throwing fireballs? In Street Fighter V, you can store inputs for 10 frames. This is what makes canceling Guile's stand light kick possible. Since we can store inputs for 10 frames, we can actually use those frames to inch forward before throwing a fireball. This comes in handy to get to the distance that you want to be at while throwing fireballs. This also comes in handy when you're playing against an opponent that can react to fireballs like a goddamn mantis. They may not expect a fireball coming if they either consciously or subconsciously see you step forward first. It also can stack with the negative edge fireball. Look at this, we're mixing fireballs, whoa! The perfect charge fireball. Let's take a look at Ryu's fireball frames. 14 frames of startup, 31 recovery frames, which is 45 frames. Similar to the unmoving fireball, he can input a DP right at the end of his animation. No charge needed.
Cheap.
Guile's flash kick requires 45 frames of charge before he has access to the special. So he can input flash kick on frame 46, same as Ryu. But let's look at an average charge time from Lord Daigo. He takes 2 to 3 frames after sonic booming to begin charging. pushing his access to the flash kick back to frames 48 or 49. My average travel time between fireballs was closer to 5 or 6 frames. Something worth taking a look at if you're playing a charge character. How can we optimize our charge time to shave off those additional frames? With the perfect charge technique. Don't worry, your inputs are not going to look this clean. This is a very strange input, but if you input down back, forward, down back, punch, then you can begin charging as the Sonic Boom animation starts. Then, on hitbox style controllers, you have access to the flash kick the same frame that Ryu can DP. Signs your opponent may jump. Is your opponent standing or crouching? I was explained to you that this is what some grappler players look for when their opponent is on defense. A crouching opponent is more likely to be patient and willing to block. A great time to command grab. A standing opponent could be a sign of impatience, and that they're more likely to move and try to escape. They're more likely to jump at this point. So when your opponent is blocking fireballs, check to see if they're standing or crouching. This could be a tell that they may be thinking about jumping. This technique is not only applicable to fireballs and grapplers. Daigo explained that he recently started watching the opponent for standing frames in neutral. He says this is how he's able to use air throw so effectively. I find these subtle tells fascinating. Like when a player dashes, there's a little jitter, a little tell that your subconscious can pick up on. Once these little tells get pointed out like this, players are forced to grow and find new tactics. Players like Fudo or Nemo hide their dashes behind normals. Just like some of the fireball techniques that we've talked about, players hide their inputs, their intentions, and tells behind animation frames. Who knows, maybe players fighting against Daigo will begin to hide their jump intentions behind animations. Sharing our techniques can lead to new techniques for ourselves and for the community. Faster alone, further together.